Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Questions for anti-Semites, or a better word, anti-Jews, and showing history without worrying about being politically correct, plus an examination of both the Democratic and Republican conventions that took place in America the last week or two. We're going to be talking about all of these topics on the show today. And let me just start out with, the first topic we're going to cover, and that is showing history without worrying about being politically correct. Today we put on our TV, and most likely we're going to be seeing junk and shows with a progressive agenda featuring all sorts of characters to sway you to think that their lifestyle choices are natural and healthy. In other shows, you'll see reverse discrimination, where it's okay to laugh at and belittle whites, men, straight people, and Jews. All of these television shows showing Jewish families that I've seen, the parents are laughed at and degraded, while the progressive characters are shown as cool and hip. Families today on television are redefined, and conservative values and religion are laughed at as primitive, unless you're of the Muslim faith. Then it's cool and exotic. Now, I grew up very liberal, tolerant, and looking at everyone in the human race as brothers and sisters that we haven't met yet. We're all the sons and daughters of Noah, and before that, Adam and Eve. We're all related. Why should we hate each other? Of course not. But I also grew up with a strong connection to my Jewishness and to Israel. I did not learn to hate people. I didn't learn to hate people that even hate me. I may hate what they do. I might hate what they think. But being created in the image of God, I know that we have the opportunity to change and become better. People change. So we're going to be talking about this, showing history without being apologetic about being not being politically correct. We'll be right back.
Always challenging the status quo. Hello, I'm Rod Bryant on Beyond the Matrix here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to encourage you to listen each week, every Wednesday at the same time, for an amazing show that will challenge you, inform you, and inspire. News, views, and wisdom for the nations here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Don't forget, Beyond the Matrix every week, Wednesday, here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Showing history without worrying about being politically correct. That's what we're talking about in this segment of the show. You're listening to the Tamar Yonah Show here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. We are live if you're listening between 4 to 5 p.m. Holy Time right here in the land of Israel, or if it's between 9 to 10 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time, that means that we are live. And our guest that we're having on now is Sharon Katz. Now, Sharon Katz is someone that I want to be when I grow up. She is an amazing woman, boundless and endless energy and creativity, and might I say, genius. She puts on Broadway type shows for Jewish women here in Israel. I wish that she could take her shows to the United States and other places as well, because you're really missing out. Hollywood only shows you what they think will sell and what's politically correct. And I'm sad about that because there is so much history to know. And Sharon Katz and the people that she works with are not afraid to boldly go where probably no Hollywood director has gone before. And that is to show the raw history and facts that have happened to the Jewish people without all the love stories and everything else that makes Hollywood famous. So with no further ado, I want to welcome to the show Sharon Katz. She is the author and composer of a new musical production on the Soviet Jewry struggle called Whisper Freedom. And she's the author or one of the authors and composers of the new film coming out in 3 weeks of the stage production of Hidden, The Secret Jews of Spain. Now, both of these pieces of history are true. And I actually went to see the show Hidden, and it's unlike her other shows. You know, her other shows were so enjoyable. It was kind of like almost like a Mad Magazine, humorous twist on history with beautiful, funny, and fun songs. The play Hidden was not like that at all. It was raw. It was a knife in your heart to see what our ancestors had to go through, and many who did not survive, some who did survive in order to tell the story of the Spanish Inquisition. And this show is now going to be available on video so others who are not here in Israel can see it as well. So welcome to the show, Sharon Katz.
Thank you so much, Tamar. Thank you for having me. Hidden, it was written by myself and my partner Avital Maklis. We wrote it and we composed the music. And you're right, it's not so politically correct, but it's so true for today's times. Today when there's so much anti-Semitism in the world, and parents are actually wondering, should I tell my child to conceal his Jewish identity when he goes to school? There's bullying in school, anti-Semitic bullying in school, all the way down to elementary school, not just in colleges, but everywhere. And in our show Hidden, actually, the little boy in Hidden wonders how he can go through his life as a boy with two faces, Catholic on the outside and Jewish in his home. It's a struggle. I think that not only that he had to make in the year 1700, or that Jews in Spain had to make in the year 1492, or that Jews had to make in England and France and other countries throughout the centuries, or even Russia. I guess our two shows are Whisper Freedom and Hidden are sort of connected in that the Jewish people have had to hide their identity and face anti-Semitism to an extent that, most of us don't really even or aren't even aware of it. I mean, you and I are both here in Israel, but I grew up in the 5 towns. I didn't feel any anti-Semitism. But now I understand that in America, it's for Jews, it's a frightening place to be. And even for little kids in school, it's a frightening place to be.
I need to just give a little bit of a background to Hidden, the Secret Jews of Spain, because not everybody knows about the Spanish Inquisition, let alone the Holocaust today. And the Spanish Inquisition was a time when the Roman Church was controlling Europe, and they were forcing the Jews, with the King and Queen Isabella and Ferdinand and Isabella, with their agreement, to force the Jews in Spain to either convert or die. And those Jews who were able to leave left. Not all of them survived even leaving, because there were other countries that were under the thumb of the church as well, and were working together with the church because that's what they believed. And these Jews had to hide. Those Jews who stayed, but because they couldn't leave for whatever reason, had to put on a show that they actually. Well, they had to actually go and convert, and then put on a show that they were Catholic, but secretly they still believed in their Judaism and tried to keep their Judaism the best they could. So
that's right, Tamar. They were actually called Marranos, which means swine, because the Christians looked down on them so much. They were supposedly new Christians, except they were never trusted. they were always looked upon with suspicion.
Right. And sometimes even if they were sincere converts, because, a lot of people, they peer pressure, you become like they are. If somebody wanted your property, whether it was a neighbor or the church itself, they would just say that you were secretly a Jew, and then they would take you and burn you at the stake and confiscate all of your property. So this was one way to get that. So this play, which is a very, very raw, as I said, I think it's a good word to describe it. You're now putting it on film. Why?
Right. Well, at the last performance, we decided that we were going to film the show. We filmed it with 7 cameras, and we thought, you know what, this show is it was acclaimed by everybody, by the media, by the audience. It was a tremendously important show, and we thought, this is it. We're going to bring it to people in their homes. That was a year and a half ago. We had no idea how difficult it would be to edit a two-hour show, and it took months and months and months and months. But then what happened? COVID, and suddenly here we're after almost giving up on the editing of Hidden, we decided that we were going to attack it again with tremendous power and force. And we've been working for the past many months with a terrific editor, Mordechai Ben-Menachem, and he has put together a film that is so beautiful, that is so inspiring. The story of Hidden in general is very inspiring. It's about Don Diego Aguilar, who was a rising star in the church. And on the day that he becomes the Inquisitor of Madrid, he discovers that he's not an orphan, as the church told him, but that his heretical parents are alive and imprisoned in his own dungeon. And Diego's forced to choose between serving the Inquisition and the church, which raised him to greatness, or risking his life to save his family and return to his people. And it's it's a tremendous dilemma, and it's very, very powerful. The show was produced by the Women's Performance Community of Jerusalem, which Avital and I founded along with Shifra Pankauer and Bati Katz, and with the OU. The OU Israel is our partner in the women's performance community. We have all our rehearsals there. We have all our programs there. We are there at we were there before COVID. We were there once a month with wonderful performance programming. And now we Zoom through the OU site. We Zoom all over the world. You know that last month we went to Moscow, and this week on Wednesday night we're going to Venice, Italy.
Wow.
It's going to be great.
Very, very important to bring this story to everyone. We only have another minute left, Sharon. What do you want to leave us with?
I want to leave you with the thought that Hidden is really a perfect show for this high holiday season. It's about faith. It's about belief in Hashem. It's about belief in God. It's about standing up for who you are and being proud. And people can see Hidden the day after Rosh Hashanah on September 21st. On our website. I'll just say it. Maybe we could put it in the comments afterwards. WPCWixsite.com/WPC Jerusalem. Rent Hidden. It's going to be great, and I thank you so much, Tamar, for letting me tell your audience about it, and I hope you'll see it too.
And with the last few seconds that we have, tell us about this new musical that you have on Soviet Jewry.
So Whisper Freedom is the story of the struggle for Soviet Jewry for the 1970s. It's about a superstar Soviet Jew who pretends to be a non-Jew and who suddenly has to take care of her very Jewish grandmother. She gets set up and she's sent to the Gulag, and there in the Gulag she really understands her identity, and she even saves many refuseniks. And it's funny, and it's exciting, and it's sad, and it's going to be a wonderful musical. It's also written by Avital and myself.
Well, I can't wait to see it. I love all of your stuff that you do. You're an amazing person, and as I said to the audience, I want to be you when I grow up. You're an inspiration.
Thank you so much. You're great. Thank you.
Sharon Katz, and we'll try to put a link on where to be able to see the video, as you said, of the show Hidden, The Secret Jews of Spain. Thank you so much for being with us.
Be well. Bye-bye.
Bye, Sharon. And when we get back from the break, we're going to be talking about the Republican and Democratic conventions that took place in the United States the last week or two. We're going to be examining what went on there and what exactly each party is bringing to the table. And if you are either an American patriot, or someone who values your freedoms, or you're Jewish especially, you're going to want to be able to kind of like comb through all of the information that they put out there and entertainment that came off as supposed information. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with Love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with Love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you know this psalm and many others were composed by a Jewish shepherd and musician who later became a king? Would you like to know some of the inner meanings of psalms to help you connect with God and strengthen your soul? An exciting and easy-to-read book is now available which will help you do just that. Software for the Soul, Psalms for Everyone, available on Kindle, Audible, and Amazon.com. Software for the Soul.
Modesty at the beach? It isn't just about body image. It's about feeling good. Modest swimsuits, so we don't get burned by the sun.
So we won't get ogled by strangers.
So we'll feel free to express ourselves without the need to expose ourselves.
Let Marcy Modest help you to cover up what you want, how you want.
Made in Israel.
Visit marcymodest.com. That's MARSEA modest.com.
And get a 10% discount on your first purchase.
All right, so we've all seen at least parts of the Democratic convention and then the Republican convention. And if you want to try to kind of sieve through what was entertainment and what was real information, here to tell us more about it, we have Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem. He's a researcher, former lecturer at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, and he has authored over 70 books and 400 research papers on science, history, and more. He commentates on Mideast and world issues. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem.
Thank you.
All right. So where would you like to take us?
Well, I don't know. Why don't we start with the Democratic convention, and then we'll go to the Republican convention. The Democratic convention was kind of interesting. It was, I think, as far as I can recall, it was fairly unique in the history of political conventions. It was the most totally devoid of any real content that I've ever seen in my life.
Go ahead.
They managed to spend the entire week talking about how terrible Donald Trump was, and they didn't say a single word of what they're proposing, what they want. What do they? Why should someone vote Democrat on November 3rd, other than the issue of they hate Donald Trump?
Okay, but to be fair, Biden, his speech was pretty good. I was not expecting him to do so well.
Well, that's what you mean by pretty good. I mean, did he stammer and forget his lines? No, I mean he was compos mentis. So I mean that's credible. The first time in a couple of years that he's actually appeared sane and not senile. So that's quite an accomplishment. It's very impressive. Of course, we all have to remember one very, very specific thing. That's something called the 25th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. According to the 25th Amendment, if a president is found to be unsuitable for holding office, unsuitable in terms of medical reasons generally, he can be replaced immediately by the vice president. In other words, anyone who votes Democrat for November 3rd is actually not voting for Biden. So your comment is very important, but unfortunately not very relevant.
Basically, you want to see who his vice president's going to be.
Sorry?
Basically, you want to see who his vice president is going to be.
Well, his vice president is Harris.
Kamala Harris, right.
That was chosen.
Right.
And Harris is a character. I don't know how else to express it. This is a person who has a specific history. She actually has some real accomplishments to her name. She has prosecuted many people that did not need to be prosecuted, and she has passed on prosecuting many people that should have been prosecuted. She's totally a political character with no content of her own.
Okay. So we've seen also in the past few days that Joe Biden has been softly, I don't even want to use the word condemning because that's too strong of a word, but saying that the protests should tone down a bit because they see all the destruction and they're fearful that some people are going to convert and go over to the other side and vote for Donald Trump just because they want some law and order. I mean, there might be a lot of Democrats who are business owners and, they might want to be vote in a very liberal government, but hey, business is business and they got to make a living and they got to put a roof over their families' heads.
Well, we need to understand that Antifa is the brown shirts of the Democratic Party. Black Lives Matters is an exact replica of Regis Debray's book, Revolution in the Revolution. It's a playbook. I mean, it's so transparent to anyone who's read the manual that nobody can make a mistake here about what the intentions really are. Nobody.
Okay.
And I can understand people voted for Obama. I've always said anyone who I'm thinking of 2008. Anyone who voted for Obama because of the color of the skin, or anyone who voted against Obama because of the color of the skin, they're equally racist. If you voted for Obama because you felt he was a good person and a suitable person to run, to be the president of the United States, I can understand that. I don't happen to agree. I didn't agree then, but I can understand that it's a legitimate vote. I don't understand how he was voted in a second time in 2012. That's where my problem is. Everything in terms of logic would tell me that Trump should win by an unprecedented landslide. Not only is there the issue of law and order that you just mentioned, which is an extraordinarily poignant issue at this point, but Trump has done a fantastic job in terms of the economy of the United States, in terms of American security, in terms of foreign relations. In every area of endeavor, he has done a tremendous job. You can disagree with his policies. You can say that school choice is a bad thing. That's what the Democrats were saying. But but this is what he promised, and he's lived up to every single one of his promises almost without exception. And that is fairly unprecedented as far as American politics is concerned. Politicians habitually do not keep their promises. We all know that. Trump is not a politician. He keeps his promises. He's crazy. Not normal.
He's not from Washington, right? He's out of the swamp over there. But I wanted to give my 2 cents and tell me whether you agree, you disagree. When I was watching the Democratic convention, I was cringing from some of the comedy routine that they were trying to put forward there as entertainment, but also as a dig against Trump. And it was embarrassing. It wasn't funny. I mean, at least if it was funny, I could laugh with them, but it wasn't even funny. It just made me cringe a bit. And with the Republican convention, The only thing that I heard them really complain about it was that, Donald Trump's speech was too long, but he had a lot to say, and he was acknowledging people who had lost their husbands, their family members to either the anarchists and these rioters or overseas in wars, and he really showed a heart for the people. However, I was a little bit disappointed with Ivanka and her speech, because I felt that, I don't have anything against her. If I have to choose between the two, me personally would choose Trump. But I just felt like her speech was a campaign speech for herself, for her grooming herself for the future to go into politics on her own, because everything was 4 years ago, I said blah, 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 and we see it happening today. 4 years ago, I said, and everything was I, and it just sounded like a campaign speech for herself. I was kind of scratching my head about that. Do you agree, disagree?
Well, I unfortunately, I have to agree with you completely. I found that Mrs. Trump's speech was one of the best political speeches I've ever heard. She was fantastic. Melania, is that the way you pronounce her name?
Yes.
I thought her speech was extraordinary, just utterly extraordinary. It was thrilling to watch it. It was an emotional pickup for me to watch her to listen to what she had to say, and she had a great deal to say. Ivanka, on the other hand, I agree with you completely. She was extraordinarily disappointing, and I was very sorry to have to say that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they're grooming her, because he's only got 4 more years left if he wins, and after that, So and I don't mind her running. Anybody can run who wants to. I just felt that this was, I don't know. I just kind of felt like she kind of turned this about her, and it should have been more about her father. And she did do that with her father as well. She said, my father did this, my father did that. She did do that. But it was just kind of strange for me. So in the last minute that we have left, what are we supposed to take away from both of these conventions? What are we supposed to learn from this?
I think what we really saw here is one side really promoted 100% promotion of hatred and no love of country, no mention whatsoever of the goodness of accomplishments, of anything that they had done or decided to do, while the other convention, the Republican convention, was a pageant of patriotism and love of country, and I cannot help but admire that enormously.
Mm. Well, at the very, very least, that fireworks show was pretty pretty impressive, I should say.
Well, I didn't see that, but that's okay. That's the kind of thing
right.
that interests me.
Right. Well, I'm kind of joking, at the very least. All right. So very interesting. I think that, again, like Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem is saying, we have to look at the substance. And if one party is just saying hate the other person, it's like the anybody but Bibi here in Israel. It's very similar to the left there and the left here. And it's anyone but Bibi, but that's not a platform. The platform is to show what we want to do, how we're going to do it. And I think that President Trump pretty much laid it on the line, talking about lowering taxes, what he wanted to do, putting a woman on the moon and landing something on Mars and et cetera. And the programs that they have, Made in America is his new slogan. So very interesting what we'll see. And good luck to the American people.
There was one line in Ivanka's speech which was
2 seconds.
Definitely worth listening to. Washington did not change Trump. Trump changed Washington. I think that's
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Ben-Tekoa, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
How did a nice Jewish girl from Delaware end up living in Israel? Shalom, I'm Natalie Sapinski. Join me on my show, Returning Home. Meet different people who have moved to Israel. Hear their personal stories, their highs, their lows, and everything in between. Each week, we talk to experts on immigration and the process of moving to Israel. Listen to Returning Home every Thursday, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, well, you have seen the anti-Semitism rearing its ugly head in the United States of America, a country where many Jews said, it'll never happen here. It can't happen here. However, it's happening there. And very sadly, I don't know if you've seen, I think I posted it on my Facebook page as well, the signs up on a Los Angeles freeway saying that Jews were the cause of race wars and honk if you agree. And there were plenty of cars that were honking just in the short video clip that we saw. And so we have joining us now Shifra Hoffman. She is going to be joining us and talking about the questions for anti-Semites. Shifra Hoffman is the founder of victimsofArabTerror.org, and she is the director of Shuva.net. Welcome to the show, Shifra Hoffman.
Thank you, Tamar. It's been a little while, but I thank all the people. First of all, I thank God Almighty for giving us the privilege to be in our land, Eretz Israel. And I thank all the people who wanted to hear me again. You can probably hear me from time to time on the Tamar, and also a radio station in New York. I'll let you know. Meanwhile, today, I would like all the anti-Semites, all the Jew haters, all those that hate Jews and don't know why or do know why, I want you to listen to a couple of questions and give me your answer, okay? I want to know why it's okay for you to have money, for you to have a lot of money, which you want, and say that Jews have all the money. Why is it all right for you to have it and not for Jews to have it? We didn't pull down, we didn't make what they call Black Lives Matter. We didn't have Jewish Lives Matter. We didn't destroy property. Our problem was not only not sitting in the back of the bus. Our problem was ovens, as the great Rabbi Khan of Blessed Memory used to say. So why is it that it's okay for you to have the money and not for us? Could you tell me that?
Very good question. Okay, because anybody who is not racist would say whoever works hard and is clever enough and to be able to make money and become the president of the United States or whatever it is they want to do that America offers people, that's great. Go ahead.
Okay. The second question is, how is it that you never target your own black millionaires and billionaires? Yes, there are. And they own property. And also they don't want what they call the riffraff blacks there. How is it you never target them? It's always Jews, Jews, Jews. Well, I got news for you, fellows. This time, it's not going to be like it was in the Holocaust. This time, if you begin a real putsch against Jews, you're going to wind up where Hitler wound up. Okay? Now, the third question I want to ask you is, why is it okay for you to murder without knowing who or what? To take a man like last week, which it multiplies. There's more than 2,000 victims now that were murdered by Arab terrorists. What did he do to you? Nothing. He was walking in the street in this land, a father of 4 children, 39 years old. What did he do that he deserves to die at your hand? Tell me. I want you to answer my questions.
All right, and Shifra is referring to a terror attack that took place last week in Israel, where a rabbi and father and husband was, yes, in Petach Tikva. I don't know if anybody who knows, familiar with that city, but who was brutally stabbed to death in broad daylight and was killed. And it was a terrible, terrible thing that happened. And this, again, as Shifra says, these are anti-Semites.
And I want to add something.
Target Jews.
Not only do I say to you anti-Semites, I want you to answer my question. I want Jews to know why you still remain there so they can do that to you. Why in the world are you remaining there with these Jew haters that kill you because they say you have all the money and the power? They want the money and the power. Let them get the money and the power, and maybe we'll turn on them the way they turn on us.
Okay, but Shifra, what would you say to people who say, well, look, here in Israel there was a terror attack and a Jew died also from anti-Semitism? What would be your answer to them?
The answer is that we have a weak leadership, and we've got to get rid of this kind of leadership. We need leaders who have to lead. I saw a bumper sticker, which is very apt. It says, either lead, follow, or get out of the way. We don't have leaders that lead. They're busy fighting each other. They all want to be captain of the sinking ship. And I say that, with great pain. Both Bibi and Gantz don't deserve to be prime minister. We need a prime minister who believes in God, who believes this is our one land, who believes that the Arabs could stay here if they sit quietly. Ger Toshav, as it says in the Torah. You have the right to be here, but not to drive us out, not to murder us, not to steal from us, and certainly not to do what you're doing every day. And I can't understand how Jews could live with it in America.
All right. And Shifra...
Tamar, is there any Jew hater or anti-Semite who understands one of my questions or all of them?
All right. Well, you know what? Let me open up the lines. If anybody wants to call in and agree or disagree, feel free to do so. Our numbers are on the top of our homepage at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Shifra, just out of curiosity, have you been watching what's been going on with the Democratic and Republican conventions in the United States?
No, because I don't vote. I'm sorry. I don't vote. I feel it's like a circus. I voted when I first came here. They took away my right to vote when they banned Rabbi Kahana, when they banned Itamar Ben-Gvir. Why did they ban them? They were Jews. They are. Itamar is a wonderful Jew. Rabbi Kahana also was a true leader. He never said to kill the Arabs. He said let them sit quietly. If they don't want to sit quietly, they have to be in their 22 countries. Why did they take away my right to vote for him? And I have to choose between Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Right, but I'm talking about the American elections.
Oh, the American... Well, I'll tell you, I think Trump is of course, he's better than Biden. I mean, Biden is... I don't think he'd be good except for maybe a watchman somewhere in the open Olam. Biden is not an entity, but Trump is very cagey. He's very smart. He made this so-called peace agreement. I want to say this forcefully as I can. It is not peace. Dear listeners, this is not peace with the Arabs. You don't have to go to a psychologist, psychiatrist, or you don't have to go to a very, very bright, teacher. If the Arabs all suddenly want it, what does that tell you? Tells you that they are winning because Trump sneaked in this so-called peace agreement that Judea and Samaria should not be built and that we should give them a Palestinian state there. Bibi, what happened to you? How dare you sign such a thing? You were always against it, or maybe you're not against it. We should be against it. There is no Palestinian state in Israel, period. Period. They have 22 states, let them make 22 Palestines, not in our one country.
All right. And, I just want to say to our listeners that this is true what Shifra is saying, that this peace that we're supposed to be hammering out with the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, is coming at the cost of Bibi's promise to apply sovereignty immediately after the elections. However, just to make it clear, it doesn't say that we will not do it. It just means that we won't do it now. And I'm not defending Bibi. because I have a lot I can say about the prime minister and his promises. Politicians, they don't keep their promises all the time. And same thing, unfortunately, with Prime Minister Netanyahu. But I do need to say that thing. So, Shifra, with the last minute that we have, what do you want to leave us with?
Well, first of all, Tamar, I have to say this because it's with the way I feel. You cannot trust VV with anything he says. Monday it's one thing, Tuesday it's another. He looks over his shoulder. Trump, do I have permission to build in my one country? Trump is not God. God gave us the Torah, and he said, to your seeds, I give this land forever, to your seed and to your generations after you. One small country the size of Jersey. What would people do if they didn't have Israel to attack us day and night? But the problem is that we have the means to attack back, and we have the means to stand strong, and we're not doing it. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Untie the army's hands. I don't think that a terrorist should have to go through trials and all kinds of things. If you see the terror acts and it's recorded, give him a bullet right between the eyes.
All right, that was Shifra Hoffman. Thank you very much. And I want to thank you all for being with us here on the show. I hope we covered a lot of information for you. And again, I want to remind you about watching the video of the play Hidden. It was a very important piece of Jewish history that is still affecting Jews today. There are many people who are secret Jews even today, and they themselves don't even know it. They just know that they have these strange customs. They don't know why they're lighting candles on Friday night, even though they're not Jewish, they're Christians or Catholics, and because their mother did it and their mother's mother did it, and only today some people are waking up and realizing that they are and stem from the secret Jews. So very important film to watch, and I want to thank you all for being with us. If you have any comments or questions, you can write me, Tamar, Tamar, at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. And you can write us your feedback as well on the show. We're interested to hearing from everyone. You don't have to agree with some of the views that you've heard here. You can agree, you can disagree. Everyone is welcome, and everyone has a right to their own opinion. We may not agree with each other, but to be able to have the tolerance and the wisdom to listen to each other, and then through critical thinking and looking at the facts of what and looking at history to come to hopefully the right conclusions. So with that, I leave you. You've been listening to the Tamar Yonah Show here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.